Well, like I warned last night, all this happy talk about the Liberals and Nationals getting back together again ignored two very big problems. One, most Liberals want to go one way, most Nationals the other. You know, one wants to go teal voters, one wants to go for One Nation ones. How do you reconcile that? But second, Liberal leader Susan Lee says she won't take back the three Nationals frontbenchers who voted against what the opposition shadow cabinet had decided. And these three voted against the government's hate speech laws. But the Nationals are insisting Lee does take back those three frontbenchers, Susan McDonald, Bridget McKenzie, Ross Cadell, and today the Nationals voted to reject Lee's compromise on this issue, though those three senators at least had to serve a suspension for 6 months. So these peace talks are going nowhere at the moment. Joining me is our Tuesday regular, National Senator Matt Canavan, the former Resources Minister. Matt, great to see you again. The Nationals' demands actually means forcing Susan Lee to back down and lose any remaining authority she has. You destroy her, she won't allow it. So there's going to be no deal, is there?
Look, I don't know, Andrew. I'm not involved in the discussions. I'd like to see us get back together because I don't think there's any great policy difference between us. We had a different opinion on that issue. I think we could easily reset the process here, and I don't think we should lose a kingdom for cabinet solidarity. There are more important issues out there. In fact, and one of the important issues we were voting on was to protect people's free speech. That's why I'll stand behind my Senate colleagues that did that. They were just representing the view of the entire room, and it was only to try and be respectful of the Liberal Party that our House ministers didn't vote in that way, vote against it. We were giving them time to consider our amendments. But look, I'm very proud of the Nationals Party sticking up for your viewers, and you're right, Andrew, to speak freely. I know you've been at the tip of the spear here on these issues. People should be able to speak freely in this country, and we'll always fight for that, the Nationals Party.
Yeah, but for me, the issue now is not that. It's whether you want to destroy Susan Lee as the price of getting back together. That's what it really comes down to. So I don't think these talks are going anywhere at the moment. One Nation has just picked up Corey Bernardi. Good move?
Well, look, One Nation at the moment seems more focused on personnel than policy. Corey's a good mate of mine. Good luck to Corey, but what we need to do for the Australian people is put pressure on the government here in the chamber. And Pauline's not here this week. I know she's suspended, but it's sometimes not always. She's not here always. So I'm doing my job here, and tomorrow, we might talk about it later, but tomorrow I'll be moving to set up an inquiry into the government's massive cost budget blowouts, which have caused interest rates to go up this week. Later this week, I'll be introducing a bill to end the ridiculous ban on nuclear energy. So those are the things I'm focusing on doing my job. I don't think getting new people or working out who's going to attract more voters is really what the Australian people want. So I'm going to focus on acting, but taking action here in Canberra, in the Senate, to make people's lives better.
Well, I think you say they shouldn't be talking just personalities. I tell you what, they'd give their kingdom to attract you to One Nation. I know you've ruled it out, but gee, that would be a game changer. But to the interest rate rise today, Matt Canavan, you touched on it. I just played at the top of the show. The Treasurer still blaming the coalition after nearly 4 years of Labor in power. How much of the inflation rate rise and now the interest rate rise to fight it, how much of that is your fault?
Well, what we've seen the last year, Andrew, is the biggest budget blowout in our nation's history. So this inflation spike right now is right at the feet of the Labor Party's Treasurer because it has come on the back of the biggest budget blowout in our nation's history. Now, look, I have said that I think we spend too much money in COVID. I said that at the time, but that's many, many years ago now. The issue is right now, the current Treasurer has not only proceeded over the biggest budget blowout last year, which was a $50 billion blowout in expenses in just 6 months. Unbelievable. It's the biggest ever. The year before that, he had the record. He'd blown the record out before that at $35 billion. And the time before that, he had a $30 billion expenses blowout. These are the three biggest, prior to Jim Chalmers' terms, budget blowouts ever. Now, if you were the financial officer, the chief financial officer of a private company, and you'd presided over a $100 billion blowout in budgeted expenses over a 2-year period, you'd be out the back door. So the question's got to be asked is, why hasn't Jim Chalmers resigned, and resigned in disgrace? Because this is the grossest mismanagement of our nation's finances in our history. A $100 billion blowout in just 2 years. And he's got no decent explanation for it whatsoever. And then now the people are going to have to pay for that lack of management of our nation's budget are the average Australian families who will face an interest rate expense rise now, who face higher costs of their mortgages. The average mortgage is already costing an extra $20,000 a year. It's going to go up for the average about $1,000 a year more now.
What do you think needs to be done to get inflation low again? People are talking spending cuts in particular. What would you say are the most urgent steps to take?
Well, it does need to start with tightening our own belt. Through these past few years, almost every Australian household has had to tighten their belts, but the Australian government refused to show any discipline with the spending of your money. And because when Canberra spends more of your money, it just means the prices in the shops go up higher and you pay for it ultimately. That's what we're seeing happening. And so take one of these budget blowouts that have occurred in the past year, Andrew. The government established something called a battery subsidy scheme. It was set to cost $1.8 billion originally. It's blown out to $12 billion in the space of 6 months. A $10 billion blowout. I mean, you've never seen anything like this before. So that should be scrapped because we can't afford to have this upper class welfare that this government is presiding over. That scheme, that battery scheme, is only accessible if you buy a battery and you get a third of the price back. So that you're still out of pocket roughly about $10,000 to get your battery. So it's a very, very good deal for the rich among us, for the upper class among us. But the rest of us have to pay for that. Through, as I say, higher prices in the shops thanks to the inflation it causes, higher interest rates now for those that are in debt to simply live in their own home. They're the people that have to pay for this upper class welfare funding, these boondoggle of green schemes that are out of control, blowing our budget and are not providing any real benefit in terms of lower energy prices for the rest of us.
Yeah, yep. Any of these batteries that, I don't know, Malcolm Turnbull might have in his great mansion, you and I have had to pay for them, and so have all the viewers through the subsidies the government's offering. And by the way, Matt, they do not create extra electricity. They store it very expensively from wind and solar, which we also very expensively subsidise. It's such a boondoggle. Matt Canavan, I know you've been fighting this for ages, and I know I've been cheering you on for ages. Thanks very much for coming on tonight. Appreciate it.